welcome everyone. And again, Sarah, thank you very much for having me. Okay, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Huntingford. I work at a company called ANS, and we're in Manchester. We focus primarily on low-code platforms, as well as things like data and AI and apps and infrastructure and that type of thing. So it's all very exciting. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Power Platform and low code. I don't feel like I need to go into huge amounts of detail, but I just want to tell you a bit of a story. I also think some of the stuff that I'm going to tell you today, you're probably not going to read on a Microsoft Docs site. So yeah, hopefully it helps you. Anywho, right, let's get the easy part done. So what is low code and why doesn't it exist? When you start thinking about what low code is, right, a lot of folks think that it's Power Apps. Okay, which I kind of agree to an extent, but low code is not just about Power Apps. It's a low code or rapid software development approach, right? That empowers people across ecosystems to solve problems with technology, which is very, very cool. So if you think about why low code exists, there's a number of reasons, but ultimately it's an approach. It's not just a technology, right? And there's a reason for that. It's supply versus demand, okay? So I want to take a quick question to the audience. Does anyone want to take a guess of when the concept of low code first appeared? And we'll do it in years, right? So if you think it was 2018, let me know. Any takers, you can put it in the chat. Yeah, Jennifer? Nope. Okay, I'll help you. All right. So low code first appeared roughly around 2013, okay, and was a company called Forrester that coined the term. And I've tried to get as much insight as I can, but low code has actually been around for a long time. In fact, low code came out as early as something like roughly 1998. So I used to write in a tool called Borland Delphi. I used to work for Borland, so those of my fellow nerds on the call, Turbo Pascal and Delphi all the way. And one of my first ever solutions I built was in Borland Delphi 5. And actually that was relatively low code. It gave you a nice GUI and you could drag and drop actions into buttons. And then when you clicked a button, something happened, all sounding very familiar for those of you that have ever built a Canvas app before. I think I've told Stephen this before, that yeah, it's quite an interesting scenario that we find ourselves in now. But anyway, it's supply versus demand. Okay, there just aren't enough people in the world to build solutions to solve business problems, and that's why low code exists. Okay, and what's also interesting is that when working in organizations, I've discovered that the backlog with requirements is huge, right? So there's just not a lot of people to make stuff, and that's effectively why it exists. Now, what's interesting is that when you start looking at the reason for low code, okay, we are now not anymore in the early adopters. We are in the early majority. So low code is not new. Power Platform is not new. In fact, the oldest components in Power Platform is roughly as early as roughly as early as 1997, and that would be Yellow Excel, or Power BI, as we like to call it now. And it has been around for a little while, right? A lot of the tools in the platform are democratized from other parts of the Microsoft product stack. Whoops. So don't think for a second, folks, that this stuff is brand spanking new, because it really isn't. Okay. Another thing that's pretty interesting is that lots of folks are calling themselves low-code vendors, right? Which is also kind of cool. Anyone ever use the tool called Canva? Yeah. Anyone ever used a tool called MailChimp? Anyone ever used a tool called Wix Website Builder? Yeah, there we go. It's all low code. Make stuff really quickly to solve business problems. Yeah, right. Super exciting. But you'll start seeing that our little line of professionals, you got Power Platform and Mendix. My colleague Jason actually used to work for Mendix, but he's better now. He's come over to the Microsoft side, which is really good. And yeah, there's a lot of anyway, I've got to tell you, I do love a good bit of Mendix. They're really awesome. But yeah, there's a lot of platforms out there. Those of you that are SharePointers, you probably worked with Nintex at some point. Yeah, it's all low code, folks. Everything's a low code platform now. Another thing is digital transformation in the UK. Hey ho, there we go. Digital transformation market size is big from a low code perspective. Cool. Hopefully I'm selling you all of this, right? Low code. Yeah, awesome. What are the benefits of low code? Let me tell you another couple of things, right? I've got a couple of sob stories here, and hopefully this will give you some insights. By the way, John Grimshaw has got one of the coolest tattoos I've seen in a while. Anyway, yeah. So why would you want to implement low code? What's the point? Well, the point is that number one, most IT departments have got budget constraints. There's a resourcing problem in the UK and globally right now, finding good low-code people. So here's the thing. I know somebody that's just been employed by a nice big company after being in the market for 3 years at an incredible salary. So we're struggling to find lots of low-code talent. We're also seeing people from all over the world joining in to do low-code things. But yeah, we just need more people, more resource. Something else I've discovered is that from a business expectations perspective, honestly, a lot of the organizations I've worked with, the typical scenario is that you'll have somebody, let's say, that works in a university. And that person might say, hey, we need to build a solution to manage mitigating circumstances. Okay, now I myself study at Birkbeck College at the moment, and I'm moving house and try to log a mitigating circumstances case because I'm supposed to have an assessment handed in and they declined it because apparently moving house is not a good enough reason for mitigating circumstances. Anyway, most unis need this, right? Now, here's the thing. The folks in the business know why that is such an important thing, but the IT folks like myself don't really get it. So we're finding a lot of people in business actually taking on and using technology, and we call them business technologists. One of my favorite ones, Shadow IT. So you might think that I'm talking about like digital ninjas that hide in the mist, and Shadow IT means you kind of just appear and, do things. But actually, Shadow IT is quite scary, right? As the great Carl Sagan once said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, my friends. And effectively, shadow IT is kind of that. Most organizations think that they have no shadow IT, and then they discover, people coming out of the woodwork. Yeah, I always congratulate companies that have shadow IT. I think it's really cool because people are doing things themselves and trying to solve problems, right? I think that's absolutely amazing. So yeah, congratulations if you have shadow IT. It's a wonderful thing. Just give people the tools and create the culture. Better a governed free market than a black market you don't know. Give people the tools and the culture and they'll build things, yeah? But if you don't give me the tools and the culture, I'm just going to find another way to make things, like creating a separate tenant, buying a £15 license per month and building all my own stuff. It's how it is, folks. That's how we do it, right? So create the tools and the culture. Security and compliance, one of my favorite ones. Everyone on this call probably loves a little bit of security right there. I'm betting. And yeah, security is really key. De-risking organizations. I hate to say it, my friends, but Excel is not a database. You can ask some of the folks in some of the healthcare organizations that I've heard about. And it's very easy to delete data. So put data in the right place, respect your data, and yeah, you'll be gold. Also things like paper processes. I need to tell you the most diabolical story. When I first got to the UK, I'm South African, by the way, that's the accent, and I'm not sorry about the rugby. I remember walking into an organization, it was a contact center, and it was the craziest thing. They had all these computers with all these different color stickers on the screens. I said to them, why do you have Post-its all over your laptop screens? And they said, because nobody replies to emails, so we stick Post-its on each other's screens. If that's not processes begging to be optimized, I don't know what is, right? So there's just tons of stuff that low code solves, okay? And I really think it's key, right? So another thing is that this is a Gartner stat, by the way. I know most of you think that about 75% of stats are made up on the spot, but this is real. So 70% of new applications will be developed in organizations by using low-code technology. Now, my developer friends on the call, those of you that are talented enough to write code, I'm not one of them. I've lost all my skills and I hang my head in shame. But that doesn't mean that you are now out of jobs and going to need to go and do other things. Actually, we need you more. Because all low code is somebody else's code. And I don't remember who said that. I saw it on LinkedIn. So if you are on the call, you are a legend, because I think that is one of the greatest things I've ever heard. And developers right now have the ability to create their own digital bricks for us to use. And in that ecosystem, you can reuse those digital bricks over and over again. Let me tell you, if I could build those from scratch and build PCFs and I can make custom connectors. That's about my line. I'll be super happy. So maybe I need to get my life together and start getting back into coding. Another thing is that we kind of appropriately want to use low code platforms to enable citizen developers, but right now they can be a massive failure because of governance. Now, here's the thing. Governance is the most diabolical term in the English language. I don't know if you all agree. Now, let me give you an example. When I had my 3 kids that I know of, and we went to the shop to buy a baby crib. They didn't say, hey, Chris, you need baby governance. They said, no, man, here's a nice, comfortable crib. Here's a place for your kid to sleep. And when I bought my car, they didn't tell me that I needed to have vehicle governance. They said you need to have a seatbelt on to protect you. Okay. So it's all in a name and all in a word, right? I think we throw the term governance around really, really strangely. And I think we need to think about maybe calling it creating a safe space for people to build things. Don't know what you all think, but for me, that sounds way better than governance. I do know IT folks love a good bit of governance, right? And I do as well, but I don't really call it that. I've got a different set of terminology depending on who I'm working with. But governance or creating a safe space for makers in an ecosystem is absolutely important, right? So when you start thinking about low code, you originally start thinking about digital transformation options. So typically what will happen when an organization decides that they've got a problem to solve, what they do is they go to the Sainsbury's or Tesco's or Asda's of solutions, and they go and buy something off the shelf. And that's all really cool, right? You can buy an off-the-shelf product, but in most scenarios, that off-the-shelf product is really good at solving one problem, okay? So you might want to look wider. We also have custom development. So a lot of folks will write things from scratch, which is cool. Sometimes custom dev can be technical debt, depending on how many different people you've got to build it. And then finally, you've got what you call all the other manual stuff like spreadsheets or certain data structures that I will not mention, Lotus Notes. And you might want to, replace those. Legacy IT. I hate to say it, my friends, we're past the age of digital transformation. We're in the age of, and I'm going to make up a word, redigitization. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're redigitizing solutions that we've built from 20 years ago. That solution I was telling you now that I wrote in Delphi, I actually found the source code on a bunch of stiffy disks. I wrote that solution 21 years ago. I believe one of the solutions I wrote about that time was only decommissioned in 2015. Pretty crazy, right? So yeah, we're redigitizing everything. But as I said, my friends, for my coding friends out there, my technical nerds, everyone that loves a bit of code, you are very much needed. And it's not only for these teeny weeny little blocks over here. Like I said, low code is just somebody else's code. So what was Microsoft's answer? What did they do? They came up with this thing, the Power Platform. And all they did was took a bunch of stuff, put the word power in front of it, and gave it a slide. No, I'm kidding. That's not what they did. So when you think about what low code is, right? A lot of you are thinking, hey, man, we've seen the slide to death. Awesome, Chris. That's pretty boring. Tell me more of a story. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story about the Microsoft ecosystem and actually how a lot of this stuff came about. So when you think about these types of tools, I'm guessing a lot of you have used a lot of them. I know some folks on this call who I've spoken to have used various elements of these, and some of you on this call have even taught me various elements of these. I was chatting to Lewis Baber last night, and he was telling me about Power Pages or portals or whatever we're calling it this week. And it was very exciting, right? He's building a lot of really cool stuff there. But it's interesting because a lot of us only use elements of the platform. And platform being the operative word, it is not an app. It's not called Power App Form. It's Power Platform. We're not just making Canvas apps, folks. Okay, that's if you're only using one of the tools in the platform, you are only using one digital brick. That's like buying a box of green Lego and only ever using the green Lego bits to make stuff. Hells no. You want to make awesome things. You want to build lots of amazing constructions. If Tom Firth wants to make a pirate ship, he can, right? If James wants to make a fairy princess castle, you can, and you can munge them together to make fairy princess pirate ships, whatever, right? Like, let's use our imagination and start thinking about creating kick-ass things with this platform. All of you know that I can make an app in 30 seconds. Literally, we know this. And actually, as a quick peek into something, I will give you a first take at this. So check this out, right? Those of you that are about to judge me for using a SharePoint list, you are welcome to do it. But if you can check it out, you can see that Power Platform is an integral part of Microsoft Office. You don't need a license to make a Power App. You really don't. And to evidence that, check this out, right? If I go to other profiles, browsers guest, portal.office.com, and this does have a pointer around ecosystems, user 49 at right, and the password I am not going to tell you. Cool. So you can see I'm going to log in with the user. This user is not licensed to my tenants. You can see that over here, nothing. They've just been given an apps and automate license. But effectively, if you were to go in and go to make.powerapps.com, anyone can build an app. Anyone, literally anyone. If you have access to the default environment, which you cannot turn off in any business, you can pretty much make an application. So you don't need to be licensed to build a Power App. You need to be licensed to run a Power App. That's where your license is consumed, not on the build, on the run. Okay. So the other thing that's pretty important is from an ecosystem perspective, I'm just going to go and pick a very random one called gift tracking. So this was a solution I made the other day to track all the awesome gifts I get given. So if you take a look, Skynet has made a lot of charitable donations to my organization, Bob the Builder as well. And as you go down, you can see Bontoso giving me some experience gifts, but we're not having to think about things we're building anymore. We can just go and start smashing in things like, hey, I want to make a Power BI report to visualize data. This is all embedded in our platform. Low code is becoming more and more and more embedded in the things that we're doing. So you shouldn't be surprised when you start seeing this stuff pop up more and more. I mean, look at this, right? If I drill into Skynet, you can actually see I've received nearly 179K worth of charitable donations from Skynet. That's phenomenal. And Kelpine Ski Lodge, so have a look at that, right? There's lots of birthday presents. So the tools in the platform are no longer things that we have to download and use. They're parts of our everyday existence. Think about the fact that you can just fire up a SharePoint list and make a Power App literally within seconds, right? We're expected to be using these tools as part of our everyday engagements. When all of you bought Microsoft Office, and hopefully you're all Office users, you didn't buy Office to send one email or create one Excel document. You bought Office to use a set of tools. Let me guess, everyone in this call right now has today at least sent 5 emails. That's my guess, bare minimum. Don't know about you folks, but if I showed you my outbox, it is the most diabolical experience in the world, right? But ultimately, think about it. The way that Power Platform is going within the ecosystem that we're living in, it's not supposed to be just about making one app to solve a problem or making one flow to solve a problem. You need to think about the toolkit. And if you think about things like Copilot, which have just been released, you can now talk to it and build solutions. That is the most kick-ass thing in the world, right? And there we go, an app literally within 30 seconds of me clicking 2 buttons from data, okay? So when we start thinking about it and you start looking at all these tools, where did they all come from? So let me tell you a story. Has everyone ever heard the story of the Microsoft 3 clouds? I'm guessing maybe some of you might have. So back in the day, this was BC, before Chris, there was a story about the Microsoft 3 clouds. And they would talk about, modern workplace or Microsoft 365 or Office. They would talk about the business applications landscape like Dynamics. And I know some of you are Dynamics nerds on the call. I am also. I came from Dynamics, CRM version 3, whoop, whoop. And Microsoft Azure, right? Some of you are Azure geeks. And what's really interesting is that the 3 clouds were spoken about all the time. And Microsoft suddenly realized, a chap called James Phillips said, we're competing against Amazon, who have 1 cloud, Google, who have 1 cloud, and Salesforce, who have 1 cloud. Why do we have to make it 3? We don't need 3. So what they did is they called it the Microsoft Cloud. It was an integrated cloud stack. And they needed a way to bring all of this content from these various clouds into a kind of layer that gave us the ability to build things. So what they did, the first thing they did was they went to the Microsoft 365 team, and they went and shamelessly stole Yellow Excel, Power Apps, and Power FX out of Excel. And these 3 tools became some of the first, not this one from the very beginning, this one's a bit later on, but Power BI and Canvas Apps, previously known as Project Sienna, in 2015, just by the way, were some of the first tools that came out for low code. Project Sienna actually was derived from Windows 8. They then went to the Dynamics team and they pried Dataverse out of our cold, dry hands. And they gave us Power Pages, which was previously Power Portals and then Power something and then ADX Studio. And yeah, I think a lot of these products go through what you call a Britney Spears phase. They get an earring, get a tattoo, they change a bit over time, but it's still fundamentally the same stuff, right? And then you've got Microsoft Azure, where a big chunk of stuff came from. So AI Builder. Bringing up AI Builder, people think we're talking about robots and somebody's toaster is going to come to life and start giving us foot rubs. But sadly not, we're not there yet. Maybe ChatGPT will be there in a while. But a lot of this stuff just comes from various elements of the Microsoft stack. I get a lot of kickback from companies and they're like, hey man, do we have to go through a whole InfoSec approval process around this? Their answer is no, because you're already using it. Congratulations, you're all Power Platform experts. I mean, think about Dataverse, the thing that looks like a green ceiling fan. That comes from Dynamics, but ultimately all it is under the hood is Azure. It's Cosmos DB, from what I remember. They might have removed that. Azure Blob, SQL Elastic Pools. It's all stuff that's being used now. It's just a layer over the top of things to make it more consumable and palatable for intermediate makers or beginner makers. Microsoft call them citizen developers. I'm still not happy with the term. So people that are starting their journey as a maker. Okay. The other thing, and I want to demystify something else, is that a lot of folks think that you can only build simple things with Power Platform. All right, I don't agree. And I don't even agree one tiny little bit. And here's why. There's a layer or a solution for every sort of part of the platform, okay? And we effectively t-shirt size this. So we call them extra small, smalls, medium, large, extra large. And ultimately, you can pretty much build anything. There are companies that run their entire contact centers on Dynamics 365 customer service, which is in fact a Power App. Uh-oh, that's important, right? So a lot of people use this. There are in fact organizations who build massive solutions on top of low-code platforms. In fact, if you went to the Android store and you started downloading some of the apps from that Android store, you would find that in fact there are Mendix solutions, which is not Power Platform. It's a competitive low-code product. Okay. So low code is here to stay. It ain't going anywhere. And Power Platform has got a massive, massive share of what we're doing here. And in fact, I've found a lot of the time, a lot of people think that Power Apps and Power Automate don't exist in their business. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, put in the data loss prevention policy that blocks everything, and you get a thing called the scream test. And the scream test is when people don't think Power Platform exists, you turn off all their flows, and all of a sudden you've got 5,000 support tickets. Oh yeah, right. So the ecosystem is thriving, the ecosystem is happening. And in fact, as evidence of that, I will show you just in my default environment, look at that. I mean, there's a couple of bad boys in there that I probably got to get rid of, but there's lots of strange stuff happening, right? And this is being used by a user without the login. So when we're starting to think about it, let's pop into this one. When we're starting to think about it, low code is starting to become a massive part of our ecosystem. And in fact, even when you're looking at tools like Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and all the connectors Microsoft has released, there's a lot of functionality available. I want to take a quick stab. Anyone in the audience want to guess how many connectors there are now in the Power Platform? We're at a pinnacle point. Yeah, Stuart, go for it, bud.
Is it over 700? Last time I checked.
Ah, there's more. We're at a very
Jesus Christ.
I thought it was 1,000.
Yeah. I'm going to show you. We're at a pushing point, my friends. Let's just see. Maybe it's ticked over today. If it has, we can all celebrate. So I'm just going to quickly create a data loss prevention policy test. Next. Oh, look at that, 999. It hasn't ticked over. That's how many connectors we're at. I was hoping it would. Quickly, somebody make a connector. But how cool is that, right? So I don't know if any of you remember in the beginning of this whole ecosystem discussion many years ago, I think Microsoft were bragging about 250 connectors. And they were like, oh man, we have 250 connectors. And we used to go and talk to people about that. Now they're 999. So unless somebody makes a connector in the next 10 minutes, yeah, we won't be at 1,000. I don't know why I'm refreshing. I'm such a geek. Anyway, you get the gist, right? So now this entire ecosystem is being built. All these connectors are being created by people. And you know what it is? It's just digital bricks. That's all it is. It's digital Lego. And that's what I love about it, right? Like you can pretty much click all these different things together to create something really magnificent. And I've always kind of wondered, what would people build if they had the ability to create anything they wanted to? And I feel like from where we are now, this is probably one of the most digitally inclusive platforms I've literally ever worked in. Okay. So before I go into the ecosystem part, any questions? Anything you want to ask before you say, hey, Chris, you're a crazy person? Cool. Right. Silence is agreement. I'm just telling you. I'm trying to get one of the other slides up as well, by the way. So just give me a sec. I'm probably going to wreck this. There we go. Okay. So you've probably seen I have this like very opinionated perspective on this concept of ecosystems versus apps. I again just believe that the whole idea of an ecosystem is far more important, and I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why we, as being in the technology sphere, regardless of whether you are not technical or uber technical, have got a massive opportunity. Okay. So I believe that the platform can be broken down into two things. It is ecosystems and portfolios, right? An ecosystem is a very difficult thing to explain, and we will do it shortly. A portfolio is very simple to explain. In fact, I will demonstrate a portfolio through the art of demonstration, I guess. So here we go. If I go to my environments and I click on my defaults and I click on apps, okay? Don't like the word app, never have, but this is a portfolio. This is a bunch of solutions that have been created or applications that have been created in my environment, okay? Some people use these, some of them don't. So what we do is we go to what we call the center of excellence or center of enthusiasm or whatever the kids are calling it these days. And we go ahead and look for admin. By the way, I must be the only human on the planet that doesn't use the Power BI reports. I couldn't tell you why. I just like to see data for what it is, right? Let's pop up in the admin view. By the way, this is a personal tenant, so I rec it quite a lot. And you can actually see that that's the number of apps and flows. So this is a view of my portfolio. I have turned on the center of excellence in some places where I've seen 36,000 kind of, well, not in the graph here, but in the Power BI, 36,000 apps and flows. It's bananas. Like sometimes in some places, it's just endless, okay? So when you start thinking about what a portfolio is, it's basically a list of things that solves a known problem. And those are apps and flows and AI bots and all these things. By the way, don't you think the new UX is cool? There's something I just want to show you real quick. Look at these two little robots fighting. That would make a great tattoo. That's what I got from the new UX, is that little thing there. Anyway, I'm useless. The other thing is that custom connectors is embedded all the way down there, which did not fill me with joy. Right, so I had to pin that pretty quick. Anyway, other than that useful nugget of information, you will never get that 5 seconds of your life back. That portfolio is effectively the list of things that I use in my business every day, which is super exciting. And I've got all sorts of things kicking about. I've got I've got HR solutions kicking around here. I mean, look at this, right? I've got an app launcher embedded in an app launcher. Oh yeah, Inception, suck it. There we go, right? If I go look at my benefits management solution, it's really cool. Oh, this is a great demonstration of security, right? So as you can see, this did actually work. I've obviously been messing with the DLP policies, but effectively, yeah, fantastic. Effectively, I can kind of launch all of my apps from here. These are part of my ecosystem. They're part of my everyday kind of job. Let's see if I'll try one more. Maybe one of them is, I don't want to launch the app launcher from the app launcher. I feel like that'll destroy the fabric of space and time. There we go. This is my little solution. Please understand, I don't make things look this decent ever. I have lots of talent, but very little taste. So I did have help with this, right? But this is all part of my ecosystem. So my portfolio is the thing that holds all the apps and flows and things that I've done. And the ecosystem is effectively the bubble that these live in. So your portfolio is oxygen for your ecosystem. The more things you have and the more things people are using, right, the larger and more managed your ecosystem needs to be. So on that, what the hell is Chris talking about? Well, let's cover this quickly. There are 3 things you can ask any company you ever work with. And if you're in a customer side, ask your organization this. If you're a partner, ask the people you're working with. We did this at ANS, so we actually asked them these 3 questions. Can you categorically tell me what people are making in your company? Can you tell me where they are building it? And can you tell me who is making it? No, and not many people can. I'll tell you why. Because number one, they don't have visibility. Okay, visibility is a hard thing to get, especially in a multifaceted ecosystem with like teams and all sorts of stuff. Where they're making, well, most of us know they're probably sticking stuff in defaults. However, you've got sneaky little people like me, this guy, who get developer environments everywhere and then create other tenants. Yeah, so it is what it is. And then what are they making? So what are the types of things people are building? And as I said earlier, the scream test, you turn off, you block every Power Automate in your company, right? You block those connectors and you block the defaults environment, you'll very quickly know what people are making, where they're making, and who's making it, okay? But these are 3 things I ask all the time. And we don't expect anyone to have the answer, to be honest. I mean, yes, you will get the answer after going through a fair bit of education and stuff. And you know, in a lot of the companies we're working now, if we can answer these 3 questions by the time we're done with an ecosystem engagement, we pretty much know we've done a good job. Okay, but it's hard to answer these, and also it's hard to answer them honestly, right? So that's something I've discovered. So what is an ecosystem? Well, it's pretty straightforward actually. An ecosystem is a collection of people, processes, and platforms which contribute to the creation of useful things or useful solutions. That's really good. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Useful solutions. Okay. So why don't we do something? If you think about an ecosystem being a bit like a city, and you can come off mute and tell me. Anyone want to tell me something around the governance of what you're seeing in this picture? Like, why is this bus not crashing into that bus? Okay. What's that little number there? Why are those people wandering out? Nats, go for it, bud.
I was going to say that at least you've got rules in your countries and not here.
Yeah, in South Africa, speed limits are a guideline, my friend. So yeah, low code ecosystems are a bit like cities. And I'll tell you what, I've never looked at a picture in this much detail in my life. But there's something interesting. So first of all, these buses are traveling a little bit further away from one another. They actually have sensors in the front of the buses and cameras, but also those people are on the pavements and they're not getting hit by the bus. The only thing that's stopping them is the guidance on that pavement and a little line in the road. Okay. There are people standing in the middle of the island. If those street lights weren't working, which doesn't look like they are, but when it turns to nighttime, it's going to be hard for them to see. Okay. Look at the tube station going down there, right? Every vehicle has got number plates and lights. There's a lot of governance and guidance going on in this picture without there being any physical guardrails that have been put up. All right. Here's something interesting. You've all been to a big city before. What happens when one person randomly crosses the road when they shouldn't? Everyone goes because they're like, oh man, if one person gets squashed, at least we all get squashed. That's good, right? But it's mob mentality. It's what happens, right? And I've seen it loads of times. But low code is a bit like a city, okay? And when you think about people, which are the people you see here, the processes, so that the things that they're going through, right? Even the little windows in the shop and the lights, this is all very much like a city. The technology we're using, well, a bus is pretty much technology, isn't it? So is a street light, you know, thank heavens for that. And that's the platform, okay? So these people, processes, and platforms are contributing to people living their lives and traveling through different points of the city. So what my colleague Jason did, and I've got to give it to him, I don't think he's on the call, but Jason Earnshaw, if you haven't followed him on Twitter or LinkedIn, he's not on Twitter, he's useless at social media. LinkedIn, right? Search Jason Earnshaw. So he loves a tube map. And his idea is that everything can be solved with a tube map. So what we did was I sat down and we started banging our heads together on the way to best describe an ecosystem. And he's like, hey man, it is a bit like a city, isn't it? And he's like, well, first of all, data is the king and queen of the platform, by the way. Power Apps and Power Automates is pointless without data. So we know that. So data is the river that flows through all the cities. But when you have a use case, you have a decision to make. You're like, okay, do I build this thing or do I buy it? So let's take sales pipeline management. I want something to help me manage my sales pipeline. Sweet. Well, you can go and buy this in Microsoft Dynamics for $65.70 per user per month, and that will give you sales pipeline management. Or you can go ahead and code it. So I might say, hey, Lewis, buddy, listen, dude, do you want to just write this from scratch using your extensive knowledge and all your programming languages? And you'd probably just laugh at me and give me the finger and say, no, dude, I can make this in a Power App. So then I'll move up and go to low code city where I can build this thing, right? So you can pick. Now there's a key thing here. Those of you that use ERP solutions, most of you should know what these are. There's a key thing that says keep the core clean, and you don't ever configure directly in the ERP, okay? Because you likely will break something. So you may configure outside of it, and you can do that using low code and all the connectors. So low code city is a good place to be because there's a lot of cool stuff in that ecosystem. And the goal is to enable your ecosystem. So we drill into low code city and there's Jason's tube map. Boom. Look at that bad boy, hey? Wow. There's a lot of stops in there. And doing low code in an ecosystem requires you to know some stuff. So let me use an example. You need to understand environment strategies. What is an environment strategy? How do I get people in my organization to build in the right place? That's the where are people making. So that's pretty important, isn't it? But then what about things like data policies? Data policies is over there. How do I stop people from disobeying the rules? How do I manage my application lifecycle? What about platform support? How do I manage all of that? So it's pretty important to know that actually there's a bunch of things you've got to think about. Now, good thing, folks, is that there's a starter kit out there. So you can kind of pick your digital guardrails line. This is the technology line, and you can kind of say, okay, we're going to protect our platform. But let me tell you, the biggest downfall of any transformation program or redigitization program in the world right now is people. Okay. The top 3 things that stand in the way of progression and growth are people. And it's got nothing to do with people having a fixed mindset. It's got to do with lack of skills, lack of knowledge, just lack of time. The chief digital operating officer, COVID-19, caused us quite a lot of trouble in the old time management department. If I showed you my calendar, it's the most diabolical thing you could have ever seen other than my default environment. It's hard to do this stuff, and it's hard to find the time. So finding people that have skilled up and learned this type of stuff is very, very interesting. And unfortunately, folks, low code ain't going anywhere. Well, fortunately. So it's kind of like get on the bus or fall behind, which is the thing. So understanding where to begin is really key. I would say if you were going to start your journey, very simply, start with your digital guardrails. Think about environments, think about security, think about data loss prevention and ALM. Okay. Also think about your portfolio. What are you going to make with this kick-ass set of tools? What are the cool things? I don't know if any of you have ever just decided randomly to pour a box of Lego out on the floor and just build something off the cuff. Quite honestly, I've done that loads, and I've built some of the most strange stuff. I wish I had all my Lego behind me, but I don't. But anyway, you have this amazing box of Lego at your beckoning call in your tenant right now, and you can make anything you wanted. Yes, you are limited by premium licensing and blah, blah, blah. But if I showed you what Mendix and Salesforce charge for their licensing, you would very quickly decide that Power Platform is a lot cheaper than anything else in the shop. We just spoiled because we get SharePoint for free. Nothing's ever free, by the way. If it's free, you're the product. So we know that we've got the tools, the ecosystem to maintain and manage this entire environment, right? But what about what we're building? And that's the final thing, is what are people going to make? And again, like I said, we t-shirt size things. So we kind of put things into categories and brackets. I haven't got the slide that's got all the entire list of what's under the t-shirt size. That's a little bit of secret sauce right there, folks. But this should be enough to get you going. But effectively t-shirt size things into categories. And here's why we do this. If you are building extra large solutions on top of SharePoint lists, it is very likely going to be the fact that you're going to have a scaling problem. Okay. If you are building an ERP solution on top of a SharePoint list, you're in trouble. Call me now. I'm kidding. I don't think anyone has ever done that. Yeah. No, John. Yeah. So it's a little bit scary, right? And actually we see a lot of people doing it. But then again, we also see people using Dataverse for extra smalls. Yeah, fine, you can do it. It's going to be awesome. That's like buying a Ferrari and driving it 2 meters down the road every day. Yes, it's cool. Yes, it's red. And yes, it's loud. But man, is the juice worth the squeeze? Does that get you what you really need? Is it worth paying for that, right? And that's the whole thing. So there's no single silver bullet for building the right solution in the right place at the right time. You have to think, and you have to critically think. And that's where the t-shirt sizing comes in. So there's a lot of concepts around what to make, where to make, and how to make, right? The other thing that's pretty key here is when you start thinking about like, hey, I'm going to build my solution on X. I'm just going to show you something that I don't normally show. But check out your approach and think about your approach. I'm trying to get folks to understand that like in your ecosystem, it should be data-centric. And the reason is this. You can build the most gorgeous looking application in the world, but if your data storage facility is not, if your data is not in the right place and not respected, that solution will never get past InfoSec, ever. Don't even bother. You can make the most gorgeous looking app, but literally if it never gets past InfoSecurity, there is no point, right? So we start with data and we work our way up. And that's really important. The whole goal here is to make sure that we get something that's really good and very user-centric, but we start with our data and we respect our data. If you would like, I did a session with good old Victor Dantes. I know Christine and them were on that same thread as me as well. But we did a session with him talking about best practice around design. And unfortunately, there's no such thing as best practice. It's always in the eye of the beholder. But one thing that's very important is if you start with data and you work your way up, you are less likely to run into problems than if you start with UX down. Okay. I welcome the challenge. I'm not always right, but so far 80% of the time I'm right every time. So no, I'm kidding. I wish I was. So that's something that's pretty important for us. So I would definitely say in your start, when you're looking at your portfolio line, start thinking about the data, because that is ultimately going to be the thing that drives the cost. Okay, so that will change the cost of your application, and if you get it wrong, data goes wrong badly. Okay, and I can give you some pretty brutal examples. I just won't do that now. All right. So last little bit, I think that the opportunity in low code is huge. It is magnanimous. There's a lot of really cool things we can do. Okay. And what it does, I kind of tease that low code is a bit like Tinder for business and IT. It brings the two together. Okay. It's in a sweet, loving relationship, right? And that's effectively the goal, right? Is we need to be acting as that kind of catalyst between the different parts of the business. In the low code deployments that we do, the biggest job is bringing people together. That's the part that's hard, right? Because when you're talking about making an app, and I'm using the word app very lightly here, you need security, you need data, you need UX. You need to start thinking about who is using it, what will they do with it. Also, the portfolio is the number of use cases that have been resolved, right? Think about the use case for low code. My theory is anything's a good idea. I will literally try and put anything through a low code filter. Not everything fits though. And it's important to know that, right? Like not everything is going to be solved with an app or a flow. Let me tell you, a 50-page Canvas app with 5,000 controls is not going to solve your problem. Okay, I've seen it. It's not scalable. Okay, chunk things down. Think about the smaller use cases. How can you rationalize a use case with other ones and microservice it? And then finally, the ecosystem supports the portfolio. So it's supposed to enable the organization, right? Give people the ability to build things in a safe space. My feedback to Microsoft some time back was, we need to find a better way to help makers build in the right place. We shouldn't have to think about, oh, I'm in default, I need to go and build somewhere else. And you know, there's a fundamental challenge here, and I'll tell you what it is that if you are in a place like Germany, okay, and you somehow build an automation that no one is ever going to manage or govern, that puts information out of Germany into another country, you're in breach. Countries like South Africa, Natty, this one's for you, buddy. Countries like South Africa have a thing called POPI, Protection of Private Information. The UK has GDPR. Yeah, we've got loads. America's got a whole bunch. Like they're all over the place. And if we don't intelligently help makers find the right place to build, we have a problem. Okay. So what I would recommend is in starting your journey and in thinking about the ecosystem, don't just think about the app. Try and get the concepts of the app completely out of your mind and think about, well, if I bought Microsoft Office, I'm focusing on sending like 50 emails, not just one. I want to get value from the platform. And it's the same with low code and Power Apps. If I'm going to use a low code platform and put in these guardrails, I need to make sure that I'm doing it for the right reason and I'm building the portfolio to make sure that my governance team have something to do. The more solutions you make, the more you need governance. The more you need governance, the more solutions you make. It's a snake that eats its own tail. Okay, and that's what we found. The last thing I want to leave you with is that if you are going into a low code journey, only looking at the app, I'm hoping that this has changed your mind and starting to get you to think a little bit wider than that. The app solves what you call a known problem, a very simple problem. It might be a complex solution. Low code doesn't mean low complexity. It might be a complex thing to build, but it's still only solving one thing. Think about the wider ecosystem. What we're learning now is doing things like evangelism sessions and running around and showing people quick builds. Oh, it's the best fun. Hey, I love doing live solution builds. I end up on Bing, and like asking it a bunch of questions saying, hey man, what's this formula? No one can ever remember the full Power FX landscape, right? Unless you're Lewis, then you might be able to. But there's so much to think about. And the other cool thing, and this is the last thing, is that when thinking about low code, the opportunity is huge again, right? For everyone. I'll tell you what, I don't know how to make apps look good. It's not what I do. My apps that I make look diabolically bad. They're blue and white. Yes, Chris. Okay. That's what I do. I need help from people that understand how users think and build things. Maybe putting the little close button in the top right-hand corner isn't the right thing. We need to start thinking about how to diversify our thinking patterns to build solutions that can be adopted by everyone. Okay. So with that, I want to say thank you very much. I've left 10 minutes for questions, I hope, and to potentially throw fruit at me. But Thank you very much. And yeah, I really appreciate the time, folks. So yeah, I guess anyone that wants to ask anything, I'll be as honest as I possibly can. And yeah, thanks again, Sarah, for having me. Cool. Any questions, folks? Feel free to ask. Come off. John, don't build ERPs and SharePoints.
I'm not an ERP. I'm looking at building a PLM.
Oh, seriously?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm actually on with Zach trying to book in a meeting tomorrow for a conversation about it. So
yeah, do it, man. I think that's the way forward. Yeah. Very, very interesting. Is anyone doing any stuff around the Center of Excellence starter kits and all that type of thing?
We're building some cool stuff with the COE starter kit at Curve Digital. Loads of extensibility and stuff like that. A lot of it around maker enablement, as opposed to saying no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. More about here's how you can do this in a nice way.
Amazing.
So it's quite early stages. Big government client at the moment. You probably know who it is, Chris, but I won't say for everyone else. No. And yeah, we're building some really cool stuff. Embedded Canvas apps and things to basically make the journey easier for the user.
Yeah, that COE starter kit, man. I think it's such a cool thing, but a lot of folks install the kit and then they think, cool, my job in governance is done. I wash my hands clean. And then, yeah, man, they get a nasty surprise a few months later. So just if you're going to install the kit, just make sure you've got the right people. And as Stuart put out there, it is a starter kit. It's the beginning. We've built some pretty crazy things on the side of it. So yeah, just remember, part of your ecosystem is managing and monitoring what's happening. Hey, Tom, go for it, bud.
Hey, I was just going to say, if you have installed the COE starter kit in the past and thought that it was really difficult, it's actually a really good wizard that comes with it now. It makes it super easy.
100%, man. I could attest to that. I hated that installation. Dude, honestly, I mean, just being brutally frank, I just couldn't stand doing it. I mean, like, it takes you about 10 days just to read the instructions, but Tom's absolutely right. Yeah. And actually, dude, you should do a session on that, man. Just like the breakdowns. Good. Yeah. I think it'd be really good. Cool. Any other questions? Believe me, I will be as honest as I can.
So where do I start? I'm a mechanical design engineer that's moved into product management. I want to move down this low code, no code, you know, as a career thing to make my life easier. It's all selfish. I'm trying to make my life easier. So where do I start?
So the best thing to do, right, is there's a couple of really good community folks that have done beginner courses like Rory Neary. We'll see if we can get the links. Sarah, do we have access to? I don't have access to the chat here. I don't know if anyone else does.
No, there is no chat.
Oh no. Okay.
So there needs to switch on Q&A.
Yeah. What I'll do, John, I've got you on LinkedIn now, man. I'll send you the starter links. The thing is, dude, I find that there's like a lot of noise out there. So there's some folks like that say, oh, it's the beginner's guide, and then the moment you start learning about like deep PowerFX code, and I'm like, no, man. That's not the way to begin. Like, you've got to start out from the fundamental pieces itself. And Microsoft Learn's got some good stuff, but I don't really learn well with them. I think Rory's stuff is really good. Got a lady called Lisa Crosby, so I'll get the links for you and I'll pop them in a message to you. But yeah, definitely well worth it. And actually, if anyone else wants them, just let me know. I'll send them over as well.
Yeah, because it is like trying to drink from a fire hydrant at the moment. There's just so much stuff out there. You lose what you're doing. So no, thank you.
Hey man, anytime. It's a really good question. And like I said, like, I got quite lucky when I started doing this because I came from the wider Microsoft world. So it was pretty easy to pick up, but I still had a massive learning curve, especially with the Canvas app side. So like learning how to make the basic apps. I really struggled with that in the beginning, but man, if I can do it, anyone can.
It's a session I'm looking at setting up. Actually, I need some volunteers for. Charlie Phipps is getting involved. So cool. What's that?
Yeah. I mean, please, folks, yeah, go for it, Barry.
No, that was it. I was just saying, I mean, I need a link to any sessions that are coming up on this.
Yeah, I think it's also like if you wanna have a 30-minute chat or something one evening, and I can run you through what I started doing to get skilled up, man. I'm happy to do that. Sweet. And I see Jason joined the call. Hey, Jace. Showing everyone your hard work. Jason's Jason's the better looking, smarter version of me at ANS.
Actual branded gear can actually fit it.
Yeah, I got a Brewdog shirt, man. There we go. Cool. Yeah, folks, please, I would really encourage you if you have stuff you want to chat around, especially licensing and things like that and data. Let me know. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I did it at Microsoft. Yeah.
If you can share the starter stuff, which you're going to share with John, that would be great. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to see if I can. It's Kritika, right? I'm going to see if I can add you. Yeah.
Or maybe just do a session or something. Anything is fine.
Yeah. Yes, Stephen.
Do a post on them all, Chris.
Yeah, I think I might.
Hello. Yeah, our biggest fear, Chris, as always, is that our citizen developers are just going to leak all the code, not pay any attention to security, and then act like freaking teenagers when we hold them to account. And they'll be like, well, I didn't know. And they're like, oh, come on, ignorance isn't like an excuse here. You've just spilled everything out. And that's the biggest fear. And yet the managers, the senior managers and middle management want them to have the tools. But again, they are like teenagers too. They just don't realize that they need the safe space to build their own stuff in. We know they build their own stuff. We get that. And if they're not going to do it in that, they just do it in Excel. And they'll leave that on the bus. You know, it's really hard. We're locking horns with them. You know, it's like the rucking season. It's just, I hate doing it. I want them to be able to build stuff, but I just don't trust them. I know they're going to balls it up. And it's
man.
How do you know, any tips?
Guardrails, my friend. So I had a chat with somebody today. We're doing a thing called, I know this sounds as boring as sin, but I promise it's not. It's called a governance experience. But what we were doing is showing them live, like what you can do with tools like data loss prevention and some of the security functions. You can lock it down, man. You can really, really stop people from destroying things. But ultimately, they're going to find a way to wreck it. So the best thing you can do is guardrails it up to the roof, and then pick the right people, get them educated, and then move them out of that beginner phase to intermediate and that type of thing. That's what I find works, but it doesn't happen like this. You know, it takes a bit of time.
Right. Thank you.
Cool.
Well, what I've seen a lot as well, Stephen, is that if you stifle that innovation in this platform, they'll just get another platform. So many CIOs that I spoke to actually went out to see which other low-code platforms that their business were using that they didn't even know about. And if basically, I think the finance department went to IT. He said, "Oh no, we're not there yet. We're just sorting out our data." So they went away and bought a Brighter. Yeah. So if you stifle it here, they'll just go and get another tool, which then causes you a headache further down the line.
Yeah, I think it is. Right. Yeah, with low code, you've got some of the visibility, but as I said, you know, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It just means that they'll find another thing. But I would say if you can, man, that starter kit is a good way. I know you guys have done some stuff around this already, but that starter kits, and then you can also implement even rules. One of my pals, a chap called AJ, he did a session you were in the user group session. Yeah, man. I don't know if you were in that session. He built a solution that notified him every time somebody made something in default. It was brilliant. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do here. Cool. I feel like we should always have ending music, like something, you know, final countdown or something like that. I can hum.
A joint round of applause. No, that was awesome. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much.
I greatly appreciate it. I'm afraid I have to drop off for another call fairly shortly, but yeah, honestly, thanks for having me. And as I said, I'm super happy to chat on LinkedIn and Twitter and Carrier Pigeon and Smoke Signals, whatever suits everyone. So just fire something over. I do my best to do calls in the evening. I just can't do it during the day with the day job and stuff. But yeah, really appreciate you having me, Sarah, and thank you for all of the lovely people that arrived. It's super good to see you all, and yeah, I appreciate the cameras on and the smiling faces.
Thank you, Chris. That was brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Such a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Session. Well done.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cool.
Bye.
See you all soon.